When a woman rejects you, she believes the story ends there. But in reality, that moment is where the real shift begins. The real strength is not in trying to persuade her or change her decision. The real strength is in showing calm emotional control, proving that her rejection did not shake you at all. And the moment she realizes she lost the emotional influence she believed she had, something new starts growing inside her. Doubt, unease, curiosity, attraction. That is the silent turning point. The moment that often pulls her back. Most men react in exactly the way Machiavelli would look down on. They respond with emotional attachment, over-explaining, apologizing, chasing, or trying to prove their value. This is the classic error. A simple rejection turns into a permanent loss. The average man believes he must earn another opportunity, so he lowers himself mentally. And nothing reduces attraction faster than a man who emotionally collapses after being rejected. Machiavelli understood a simple truth. Once you lose your posture, you lose your influence. And once influence is gone, everything follows. So, when a woman rejects you, what you do next doesn't just matter. It decides who holds control of the situation. Most men try to fix the rejection. The Machiavellian man corrects the perception. The rejection was never the real issue. The reaction is, because rejection is actually the perfect chance to reverse the dynamic. Not by chasing, not by insisting, not by convincing, but by stepping back calmly and allowing her to feel the weight of your absence. The female mind does not respond to a man who begs. It responds to the man whose silence speaks louder than any explanation. When she rejects you, treat her like someone who chose to walk away, not someone you lost. Don't get offended. Don't ask questions. Don't argue. Don't display pain. Simply accept it with controlled calm. That move quietly shakes her ego. Machiavelli teaches that power is not in the action itself, but in how the other person interprets it. When you respond to rejection with composed indifference, she doesn't see a defeated man. She sees a man who does not depend on her. And that disturbs something deep in the female subconscious, the discomfort of losing access to a man she cannot influence. You don't threaten to leave. You don't try to repair anything. You simply continue your life as if nothing was taken from you, because nothing was. The only thing she took was what you allowed. And now you stop allowing it. The Machiavellian key is simple. Silence after rejection is more powerful than 1,000 arguments. A woman expects emotion. She expects disappointment. She expects hidden validation wrapped in politeness. But when she finds none of that, her mind turns inward. That is where fixation begins, not because of what you did, but because of what you didn't do. Your lack of reaction is read as self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency is read as value, and value triggers the instinct to chase what once felt easy, but now feels distant. Women are driven by emotional curiosity. Show pain and you become predictable. Show control and you become mysterious. And a mysterious man is the one she thinks about, even when she tries not to. There is a hard Machiavellian truth here. Controlled distance opens doors that pleading will always shut. So when she rejects you, don't turn cold or hostile. Hostility is still emotional dependence. Instead, remain polite, reserved, and selective with your attention. She should feel that you still exist, but you are no longer revolving around her. You stay where you are, but you stop moving toward her. This neutral position is powerful because for a woman, response is rarely the first instinct. The first instinct is testing. Testing boundaries, testing emotions, testing how much effect she has on you. And when she realizes she has none, the entire dynamic shifts. Now she is no longer testing you. She begins questioning herself. Why didn't he react? Why didn't he try again? Why didn't he care? And with every unanswered question, you gain ground without speaking a word. This is pure Machiavelli. Win without conflict, influence without exposure. When you accept rejection with complete calm, you send a message most men never manage to send. You do not need validation. And emotional independence is rare. Everything rare becomes valuable. Everything valuable becomes attractive. She may have rejected you in that moment, but once she sees you are not chasing emotional approval, her rejection loses its power. The emotional balance shifts. That is when you begin interacting in a precise, controlled way, not ignoring her completely, not pursuing her either, simply placing her where she now belongs, no longer a priority. When she talks, respond briefly but respectfully. When she appears, act normal without excitement. When she tries to regain your attention, offer less than before, not to punish her, but to restore balance. This creates a powerful contradiction. She feels you are still present, but no longer available in the same way. That is when her mind starts searching for ways to recover what she feels she lost. Rejection turns into regret. Regret turns into restlessness. Restlessness turns into desire. Because no woman is comfortable with the idea that a man she rejected is completely fine without her. Deep down, it disrupts the fantasy of emotional influence, and anything that disrupts control creates fascination. Here is the quiet truth few people say out loud. Women rarely return because you insisted. They return because you became unpredictable again. After rejection, behave in a way that shows you no longer need what she offers. Don't display neediness. Don't advertise your value. Don't explain who you are. Just continue living your life with calm certainty. Act like nothing has changed, because for you, nothing truly has. Her rejection does not define your life. It only defines where she now stands in your world. And that is what makes her imagine you with other options, other directions, another life where she no longer fits. That thought creates discomfort. And that discomfort quietly awakens attraction. That is the move Machiavelli would make without hesitation. The moment she realizes she may have lost you without ever truly possessing you, she doesn't return because you pleaded. She returns because your lack of need hits her mind like a truth she cannot ignore. When a woman rejects you, most men think they lost a battle, but a Machiavellian man understands something deeper. He has gained a strategic position. Because rejection reveals reality. You see who she really is, and she sees who you really are. The common mistake is turning rejection into drama. Arguments, chasing, emotional recovery missions, trying desperately to reclaim something she already chose not to take. But you are not there to reclaim anything. You are there to reposition influence. Machiavelli said people are driven by two forces, fear and desire. Women respond to those same forces. When you show need after rejection, you erase uncertainty and destroy attraction. But when you respond with complete calm, you activate something she never expected. The possibility of losing a man who never belonged to her in the first place. That feeling is more powerful than charm, compliments, or persuasion. Very few people say this openly. After rejecting you, the first thing a woman watches is your reaction. That reaction tells her everything. Were you a real option or just another name she could dismiss easily? She expects to see your confidence weaken, your tone change, your emotional structure crack. This isn't cruelty, it's instinct. Women test, often without realizing they are testing. But when you don't break, when you don't chase explanations, when you don't show emotional collapse, you step outside her mental script. and anything that escapes the script becomes interesting. Rejection creates emotional imbalance. But the imbalance is not yours, it is hers. She expects you to feel loss. She expects visible reaction. When that reaction never comes, she is forced to reevaluate you. She is no longer looking at the predictable man she thought she understood. Now she sees someone who does not need her approval to exist. And that kind of man isn't just attractive, he's unsettling. Unsettling because she cannot influence him. Unsettling because she never knows what to expect. Unsettling because his presence does not shrink even when he walks away. The core principle here is simple. Don't react. Act. And in this situation, acting means continuing your life as if nothing changed. When she speaks, you reply. But you don't pursue, you show respect, but not emotional investment. You don't display pain, but you clearly show that your priorities are elsewhere. You become busy, not as a performance, but as a reality. If she did not want your time, that time now belongs to something more meaningful. And when she realizes that, her rejection begins to feel like a poor decision. When a woman starts questioning her own choice, the entire dynamic shifts. Here is the deeper truth. Women do not return because of regret alone. They return because their perception of your value changes, and for the female subconscious, value is measured by how much a man can lose without losing himself. Rejection tests your value. Your reaction confirms it. The irony is powerful. The less you try to prove your worth, the more valuable you appear. Because insecure men market themselves. Grounded men don't need to. Machiavelli would say a wise leader never begs for loyalty. He remains steady and loyalty follows. The same rule applies to attraction. A man who controls his emotions does not ask for attention. He allows attention to come naturally. And it does, because emotional independence is one of the rarest and strongest forms of masculine strength. The moment you accept rejection calmly, you remove the emotional reward she expected. She anticipated seeing you affected, but you weren't. And in that silence, a gap forms. The only way for her to fill that gap is to try to regain the emotional position she thought she controlled. Humans struggle with loss of influence. So when a woman expects you to suffer after rejecting you, but you don't, she is forced to face an uncomfortable reflection. That's when her mind starts creating stories. Who is he talking to now? Who has his attention? Maybe other women appreciate him. Maybe he already moved forward. It doesn't always mean she wants a relationship. It simply means she no longer feels secure in her decision. She wants to quietly step away from the emotional world of a man who once felt stable and now feels distant. And the most important part is this: she will almost never admit it. Not to others, not even to herself. Instead, her behavior shifts. She starts watching your stories more closely. She replies faster than before. She asks questions she never cared to ask. She messages you about random, harmless topics while pretending it's casual. But it's never about the topic. It's about checking whether you're still emotionally available. This is where you reinforce your Machiavellian position. You respond, but only enough. Never too distant, never too accessible. Short replies, neutral energy, a tone that quietly says, "I'm not upset. I'm just not invested the way I used to be." This subtle shift is powerful because it touches her sense of self-worth. And when self-worth looks for reassurance, it moves closer. That's the psychology: simple, precise, reliable. When she realizes you are completely fine, steady, and calm, she starts questioning something dangerous. Did I make the wrong choice rejecting him? And the more that thought repeats, the stronger the emotional attachment becomes, not to you directly, but to what you represent. And that repeated thought, not appearance, not attraction, not conversation, is what brings a woman back quickly. Rejection is not the end. It is the moment you demonstrate emotional control, quiet value, and zero desperation. No one teaches this. No one openly admits it. But this is what works. When a woman rejects you, she believes she already understands you. She expects predictability. She assumes you will insist, explain yourself, send emotional messages, or show disappointment. She expects you to be another man who emotionally breaks after hearing no. But when you do none of that, when you accept rejection with a calm, almost unsettling peace, that is when you become unsettling in a different way. And women are naturally drawn to emotional unpredictability. Here is the truth few people say. Rejection is rarely about you. It's about her timing, her emotional state, her mindset in that moment. But the female mind is extremely sensitive to contrast. So when she sees that her rejection did not create the reaction she expected, the first internal crack appears. She realizes she underestimated you. And that realization touches the ego, even in confident women. This is the exact point Machiavelli would call a psychological advantage. You stop being the man she rejected and become the man she couldn't influence. And that type of man is rare. Anything rare draws attention, and attention easily turns into desire. After rejection, the Machiavellian move is not to disappear completely. That's predictable. It can even look dramatic or emotional. The real move is quieter. You step back internally before you ever step back externally. You reply when necessary, but without the same warmth. Your energy changes, your presence stays calm, controlled, composed, and she feels it immediately. She realizes she no longer has emotional leverage over you. That realization creates a slow, uncomfortable pressure. She expected you to be weaker, but you appear stronger. And nothing challenges a woman's sense of control more than realizing she lost access to a man who never depended on her. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. Because no matter what a woman says, rejection usually places her in a position of emotional advantage. When that advantage disappears, she loses her reference point. It's like an invisible support behind her decision starts to weaken. And when emotional influence weakens, a woman begins observing you differently. She notices if you seem more focused. She notices if your confidence feels sharper. She notices how other women interact with you. She notices your routine. She even notices your silence. Yes, silence is studied more closely than any words you could say. When used correctly, silence becomes the strongest amplifier of value a man can have. The female mind reads male silence in only two ways. Hidden weakness when the man appears fragile. Quiet strength when the man remains steady. You always want to be the second. The woman who rejected you now feels a quiet discomfort. She senses she may have lost access to something valuable. She doesn't fully understand what she lost, but she feels it. And feeling something without being able to define it is what keeps the mind active. That uncertainty is what pulls her back into emotional curiosity. This is the trigger that creates fixation. No one talks about it openly, but Machiavelli would understand it perfectly. Doubt is far more powerful than certainty when influence is the goal. Her rejection would push most men into emotional pursuit, but you are not most men. You demonstrate control. And that control awakens a deep, ancient instinct in women, because women do not emotionally connect with men who lack self-command. They connect with men who govern themselves. Rejection is simply a filter. It separates emotional weakness from emotional strength. And when you pass through that filter without visible damage, she is forced to adjust how she sees you. That is when you begin treating her in the one specific way that brings her back. You reduce access. You show no expectation. You show no frustration. You show no urgency. This changes your meaning in her world. You are no longer the man who was rejected. You become the man who was unaffected. That places you in a higher psychological position. And attraction toward emotionally superior men is natural. She may not feel it immediately, but she will feel it. Women store emotions for long periods of time. Weeks later, months later, she will replay that moment and realize something important. You didn't plead, you didn't chase, you didn't explain yourself. And that realization creates quiet respect. Quiet respect is always the first ingredient of real attraction. But there is one rule: you cannot break the frame. The moment you show need, chase, explain, seek closure, or look for reassurance, you undo everything. The Machiavellian mindset requires consistency. Consistency is what turns rejection into doubt and doubt into desire. And when that desire starts to return, the behavior changes. She approaches again, but indirectly. Small messages, random comments, minor reactions, unnecessary questions. It's all a test. She wants to know if she still holds space in your life. This is where you control the rhythm. You respond, but you don't open yourself. You speak, but you don't expose your emotions. You are present, but she is no longer your priority. This controlled distance is the key. It creates the perfect environment for her to move toward you. She has just enough access to feel your presence, but not enough to feel secure. And uncertainty keeps the mind active. A woman who feels uncertain thinks about you constantly. This is not cheap manipulation. It is basic human psychology. People are drawn to what cannot be easily obtained. And when you remain composed after rejection, you become exactly that: a mystery, an unanswered question, a situation her mind could not solve. And what the mind cannot resolve, it continues to revisit. Her rejection, which should have pushed you away, begins pulling her back, not because you chased her, but because your response revealed something unexpected. Emotional authority, and authority creates attraction. Here is the truth few people admit. Rejection is not the end. It is a mirror that shows how a man reacts when control is challenged. Most men fail that moment. They chase, they send long messages, they explain, they plead, they try to earn another chance, and by doing so, they erase their value. But the Machiavellian man does none of this. He sees rejection as an unplanned test, a test of emotional strength. And when he passes it without disturbance, she is the one who loses balance. Because after rejecting you, she expects impact, she expects reaction, she expects emotion. In her mind, that no should rearrange your world. But when nothing changes, when your life continues as before, a psychological gap appears. And that gap demands answers. Those unanswered questions are where fixation begins. Fixation is never created by what you say. It is created by what you don't say, not by what you show, but by what you withhold, not by constant presence, but by controlled absence. This is where the Machiavellian approach applies. You treat her as someone who lost priority, not respect. That balance is rare. Some men become bitter because their ego is hurt. Others become submissive, trying to win approval. You do neither. You remain calm, composed, politely distant. Calm distance is psychologically powerful. It makes her feel two things at once, like you are not hurt, you are not available. That contradiction creates mental space. And she fills that space with thoughts about you. The less you explain, the more she imagines. And imagination moves a woman toward you, even when she tries to resist. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Absence can be more influential than presence when applied with precision. You don't disappear completely. Total disappearance looks like emotional escape. Instead, you do something far more effective. You maintain limited presence. Limited presence means you still exist in her world, but you are no longer easily reachable. You reply, but you don't extend conversations. You appear, but you don't initiate. You speak, but you don't open yourself. This does not feel like rejection. It feels like transformation. And nothing intrigues a woman more than realizing like a man has changed how he treats her, especially when she believed she was fully in control. From this point forward, she begins replaying the rejection. At first, her decision felt right. Now questions surface. Did I act too quickly? Why didn't he try again? Did he lose interest? Is someone else in his life? Did I let something valuable go? This cycle of doubt is exactly where perception shifts. Not to overpower her, but because this is when she finally sees your value. A woman does not value the man who reacts like everyone else. She values the man who makes her feel emotions she cannot manage, and you create those emotions the moment you stop prioritizing her after rejection. Not with anger, not with revenge, with calm logic. If someone declines your presence, you naturally stop placing them at the center of your life. The logic is clean, the impact is deep. Because when she realizes she has lost space in your world, a feeling appears that most women never admit: insecurity. And that insecurity is the final spark. The woman who rejected you begins to feel a quiet fear. A fear that you might now be re-evaluating her value. A fear that you may be seeing other options. A fear that she is no longer enough. And fear is one of the strongest emotional triggers that exists. Machiavelli understood this clearly. Desire can be delayed. Fear cannot be ignored. So when a woman feels she is losing emotional access to you, her behavior shifts completely. She looks for excuses to reach out. She sends indirect messages. She starts engaging with your posts more often. She asks about your life, pretending it's casual, but it never is. It's uncertainty. And uncertainty pulls her back. She may test you with light teasing, subtle humor, or small compliments. Every one of these actions comes from a single source. You did not react the way she expected. Ordinary men react with emotional urgency. A Machiavellian man reacts with stability. And stability is rare. Anything rare becomes valuable. Anything valuable becomes desired. This is the moment where your posture must stay flawless, because the dynamic does not end when she shows interest again. That is where most men fail. The moment she returns, they break their frame. They get excited. They show need. They give her back the priority she once rejected. And attraction disappears instantly. A Machiavellian man does the opposite. He maintains the same calm energy, the same measured distance, the same limited availability. Even as she moves closer, she only commits when she realizes the door is no longer easy to open. Because difficulty, not ease, awakens attraction. Her emotional shift depends on one thing. She must feel she lost you, even slightly. Whatever feels lost becomes valuable. Whatever becomes valuable is pursued. And whatever is pursued gains power. Her rejection was the first move. Your reaction was the second. The next move now belongs to her. The moment she realizes she can no longer predict you. And when a woman cannot predict a man, she moves closer. Here is a truth few people understand. A rejection is not the ending. It is the beginning of real observation. Only after rejecting you does she truly watch you. She measures, she compares, she interprets. The rejection is only the opening scene. The real evaluation happens after. This is where the average man collapses, but the Machiavellian man strengthens. A woman does not reject a man and forget him. That is a myth. She rejects him and then watches how he handles it. His reaction determines whether her decision was strong or flawed. So she observes quietly. She waits. She studies. She expects you to ask for another chance. And when you don't, when you continue your life calm and unaffected, you create mental tension inside her. She expected collapse. You remained grounded. That contrast begins to work on her mind. Each time you appear steady, focused, composed, she feels a subtle internal discomfort. At first, it is not desire. It is irritation. But not toward you. Toward herself. Because she begins to sense she may have dismissed a man of value. And that feeling grows slowly. Like all real fixation, it does not come from intense emotion. It grows from emotional restraint. The more stable you remain, the more she feels her influence slipping away. Here is the truth most people avoid saying. A woman's strongest emotional attachment is quiet influence over a man. When that influence disappears, a psychological gap opens, and that gap wants to be filled, often by the same man she believed she had already removed. After rejection, when you show no weakness, her image of you changes, the first version of you fades, a second version forms, a man who does not plead, does not chase, does not explain, does not emotionally lower himself, a man who respects himself after hearing no. That man is rare, and rarity is deeply attractive. Now she realizes something uncomfortable. She no longer has emotional leverage over you, and that realization challenges her confidence, because women do not respond well to losing influence over a man who represented potential. In her mind, the rejection should have placed you beneath her emotionally. But when that does not happen, the balance quietly reverses. She doesn't say it, she doesn't show it. But internally, the shift happens, so she begins to test. The tests are never obvious, never direct. They appear as small actions, a story view, a reaction to a post. This reminded me of you. A random question about something unimportant. All of it comes from the same place. She wants to know if she still exists in your emotional world, and the Machiavellian man understands this moment perfectly. Respond with calm respect. Maintain mystery. Never give her exactly what she expects. She is searching for confirmation that she still holds power. You must never give that confirmation. If you do, everything you built after the rejection collapses. Your position is the middle ground. Present, but not invested. Polite, but not eager. Calm, but not available. When she finally realizes you have changed, that you no longer treat her with the same open warmth, a powerful emotion awakens inside her. Loss. Loss is stronger than jealousy, stronger than affection, stronger than desire. Loss activates something instinctive, a deep urge to recover what feels gone. The irony is simple. You didn't take anything from her. She removed herself. You only showed that you do not stay where you are not chosen. That realization strikes the ego sharply. From this point forward, she begins to see you again as a possibility, but not the same one. Now you are more selective, more reserved, more valuable. The man she rejected was generous with attention. The man she now sees is scarce. And scarcity creates desire. Slowly, she tries to regain her position in your life, even if she never admits it. But you do not rush. You do not reopen doors easily. You do not validate her the way you once did. This is what breaks through resistance, because she is now dealing with a man she does not control. And human nature is simple. We are drawn to what we cannot fully dominate. Despite what is often said, the Machiavellian truth is clear. A woman is deeply drawn to the man who challenges her emotionally without harming her, stands firm without submission, wants her without being predictable. Her rejection started the process. Your posture created the attraction. The emotional imbalance triggered the pursuit. And once the pursuit begins, the pattern is always the same. She tries to reopen doors she once closed, but now you decide if they open. Now the leverage has shifted. Now the attention flows differently. Now she is the one adjusting, who feels the absence you left behind. Now she is the one replaying the decision she made. Now she is the one wondering if she has lost you forever. And as that question starts echoing inside her mind, her return becomes only a matter of time. There is a very specific moment, almost invisible, when her rejection stops being her weapon and quietly becomes yours. It does not happen when you pull away. It does not happen when you become cold. It does not even happen when you stop showing interest. It happens the moment she realizes you are no longer emotionally available in the way you once were. That single instant changes everything. It is the exact point where power changes hands. Most men never reach this moment because they break too early. They seek closure, they beg for clarity, they try to fix something that was never broken, they want certainty, they want clean endings, they want resolution. And every woman instinctively senses that a man who needs resolution is a man who is emotionally dependent. The Machiavellian man is different. He does not chase answers. He creates questions. He does not ask for explanations. He lets her explain herself to herself. He does not try to resolve anything. He simply repositions. After the rejection, your posture creates a slow psychological effect. Gradual, cumulative, almost invisible, yet deeply impactful. She realizes she has lost the emotional privilege she once had. And the loss of privilege strikes the female subconscious deeply. It feels as if the space she once occupied inside you has now been given to something else. New priorities, new people, new possibilities. Instinctively, a woman fears losing emotional territory. At this stage, she begins to feel something she would never openly admit. She feels her control over you slipping away. It does not matter if she never wanted anything serious. It does not matter if she believed she had better options. It does not matter if logically she thought she made the right decision. Emotion does not follow logic. When she realizes her impact on you has faded, a quiet discomfort begins to grow. And with time, it only intensifies. That discomfort multiplies when she sees that you do not react to her signals. You do not show longing. You do not chase. Your silence feels solid, so solid that even her words feel weak against it. This is the moment the rejection begins to unravel inside her mind. The no she gave slowly turns into a maybe. And eventually, that maybe becomes an if. And if is dangerous. If reopens doors. If places you back in her imagination, but now with far greater intensity. Here is the quiet truth no one talks about. A woman only begins to desire again when she feels she has lost emotional access to the man who once welcomed her. Desire is born from lack. Lack is born from absence. Absence is born from emotional stability. And Emotional stability is what separates the amateur from the Machiavellian. You do not react to her withdrawal. You do not try to change her decision. You do not sit and wait for her return. You wield Machiavelli's most powerful tool, self-control. And self-control is the most attractive power that exists. Because unlike charm, looks, or charisma, self-control cannot be faked for long. It shows in every detail. How you respond, how often you appear, and the complete absence of desperation. Eventually, she starts asking herself questions she never planned to face. Why didn't he chase me? Was I not that important? Why is he so calm? Has he already moved on? Is there someone else? Why do I feel like I lost something? These questions are seeds planted not by your words but by your posture. And her mind waters those seeds every single day without realizing it. The more she thinks about you, the more she contradicts herself. The more she contradicts herself, the weaker her pride becomes. And the weaker her pride becomes, the closer she starts drifting back. But here comes the Machiavellian truth few men understand. When she finally begins moving toward you again, that is the exact moment you must become even more controlled, because this is where most men lose everything they built without effort. At the first sign of attention, they melt. They become emotional. They return to the same submissive behavior as before. And by doing that, they instantly erase the attraction that was slowly rebuilding. Understand this clearly. A woman does not return to be rewarded. She returns to test. She comes back to measure you, to see if your emotional value is real or just an act. This is where you must master calculated distance. Calculated distance is not coldness, it is not disrespect, it is not total silence. Calculated distance means this: you give her enough to stay curious, but never enough to feel secure, because comfort ends desire and uncertainty fuels interest. So you show interest, but not dependence. You talk, but you do not expose your emotions. You appear, but you do not chase. You respond, but you do not extend conversations. This creates a powerful psychological loop. She feels she can reach you, but not fully. She feels you are present, but not available. She feels access, but not control. She senses your presence, yet realizes she is no longer the center of your world. And when a woman feels she has almost everything except control, her emotional alert system activates. An emotional alert is the strongest trigger for pursuit. The Machiavellian man understands something crucial. Her rejection gave you a map to her mind. It revealed exactly where she believed she had power over you. When you break that pattern and react in the opposite way she expected, you quietly destroy the structure she built around you. From this point on, her attraction is no longer a choice. It becomes a consequence, because now she no longer sees you as a man trying to win her. She sees you as a man she must win back. And the female mind works far more intensely in reconquest than in simple attraction. What once looked like indifference becomes curiosity. Curiosity becomes comparison. Comparison becomes doubt. And doubt, when carefully fed, becomes desire. When desire becomes one-sided, it turns into movement. That is why she comes back. Not out of pity, not out of nostalgia, but because her ego was touched. Her perception was shaken. Her sense of security was removed, and her curiosity was awakened. You did not win by arguing. You did not win by explaining. You did not win by pleading. You won by not reacting. You won by maintaining emotional control. You won by doing the exact opposite of what most men would do. And when you win this way, she returns on her own. The most powerful moment in this entire psychological process is not the rejection itself. Not even your calm acceptance. It is the moment she realizes you are no longer trapped inside her emotional script. That instant creates a silent fracture in her mind, and that fracture slowly grows until it swallows the logic that once justified her decision. Up to this point, you followed the strategy perfectly. You did not react. You did not beg. You did not explain. You did not try to convince. You accepted the rejection calmly and continued your life, not as a performance, but as a principle. First comes curiosity, then discomfort, then insecurity, and finally, that insecurity turns into need, the need to regain the influence she once had. Here is the truth few men ever understand. A woman only feels regret when she realizes she lost something she could never fully control. Her rejection may have been genuine at the time, but regret is never about the past. It is about what she feels later, when she sees that her decision did not create the reaction she expected. She expected you to fall apart, not grow stronger. She expected you to chase, not move forward. She expected to feel irreplaceable, not optional. When that expectation collapses, a powerful inner storm begins. Confusion, wounded pride, curiosity, comparison. Together, these turn you into a mystery, and whatever a woman cannot understand, she feels compelled to explore. The rejection was meant to close the door, but your posture opened a window. Now she sees you differently. She notices your energy has changed, your priorities have shifted, you seem more confident, more focused, more grounded. You now feel harder to reach, and anything hard to reach becomes magnetic. That magnetism does not come from effort, it comes from detachment, which is why Machiavelli would say, power belongs to the one who does not need another to exist. And now she clearly sees that you do not need her. This is when the female psyche begins working in your favor. First, she tries to understand. Then she tries to predict. Then she tries to regain influence. When she cannot, she moves closer. But she will rarely approach directly. She will not say, "I miss you." She will not say, "I made a mistake." She will not say, "I want you back." Instead, she circles the truth. Neutral messages, random conversations, old chats revived, memes, reels, small talk about anything. These are quiet emotional signals. Her ego testing if the door is still open. Her subconscious asking, "Are you still there?" And the Machiavellian man knows what to do. He does not give instant validation, because the moment you give yourself back too easily, you destroy everything the rejection created. You return to the same position as before, the only position where desire disappears, so you keep the same standard. Calm replies, polite tone, short messages, neutral energy, no emotional flooding, no eagerness. You show stability, not longing, presence, not priority. This kills predictability. And when predictability dies, desire is born. She begins to feel your attention is rare. And rarity creates value. You are not chasing. So her instinct to pursue awakens. Yes, women also chase what is not guaranteed. Then something even more powerful happens. She stops seeing you as the man she rejected and starts seeing you as the man she is afraid to lose. That shift is the core of Machiavellian attraction. As she moves closer, the final test begins. She creates small situations to measure you. Do you still react? Does she still influence you? Does she still have power? Will you bend? Will you need her? And every time you remain composed, she loses a little more control. Every time you do not react the way you used to, she feels a small internal fracture. Every time you answer with calm confidence, her earlier decision feels weaker. Slowly, this creates what we can call the reverse attraction spiral. At first, you were emotionally positioned beneath her. Then you stepped out of that frame. Now, without fully realizing it, she is the one adjusting to you. And this is where you must understand the most important truth of all. A woman only starts moving back when she realizes something critical. The distance between you is no longer because she rejected you. It exists because you chose to step back. That is the turning point. That is the moment pursuit begins. That is the instant the power fully shifts. Because now she sees the door differently. It is not closed, but it is no longer wide open. It is no longer a door she can walk through whenever she wants. It is no longer comfortable. It is no longer guaranteed. And that uncertainty is what pulls her back toward you. You are not punishing her. You are not hurting her. You are not playing games. You are simply communicating through your posture that the man who was once freely available now values his presence. And that emotional value is what pulls her across the distance. But she does not come back suddenly. She will not show up saying, "I miss you." That is not how the female mind operates. She returns slowly, quietly, strategically, always hiding vulnerability behind small gestures. She comes back because something inside her broke. Her certainty about you. And when certainty collapses, a gap appears. Inside that gap, regret begins to grow, not romantic regret, strategic regret. The regret of letting go of a man she believed would always remain accessible, only to realize he is no longer within easy reach. That realization changes everything. Here is the truth few people admit. A woman does not return because she suddenly sees you as extraordinary. She returns because she realizes you were never as accessible as she assumed. She comes back because her ego misses the emotional influence she thought she had over you. She comes back because your silence shattered the sense of control she believed she possessed. And the more she tries to understand you, the deeper she becomes mentally invested. Curiosity turns into unease. Unease turns into comparison. Comparison turns into desire. Desire turns into movement, but the movement is subtle. She will not confess directly. Instead, she appears on your screen by chance. She sends messages without a clear reason. She reacts to your story. She revives old conversations. She asks your opinion on things that do not truly matter. She suggests meeting without calling it a date. She hints. She tests. She lightly provokes. Nothing is random. Nothing is accidental. Every action is calibration. She wants to know, are you still there? And if you are, in what way? A Machiavellian man understands this. Her interest is never announced. It is detected. The man who understands women notices what others ignore. And now we reach the most critical phase. From this moment forward, you decide the dynamic. The rejection no longer belongs to her. The control no longer belongs to her. The story is now in your hands. Which is exactly why you must not destroy everything with a single mistake. Most men do. She returns, and they return as well. With excitement, with emotional hunger, with eagerness, and the moment they do, the structure collapses, the tension disappears, the uncertainty dissolves, the power shifts back, and once a woman feels complete control again, interest fades. When control is restored, desire dies, because relief removes attraction. Where there is comfort, there is no longing. That is why, when she finally reappears, you must protect the posture you built. Calm presence, measured distance, limited access, balanced interest, stable energy. This is not about punishing her. It is not about manipulation. It is about becoming the man you were meant to be from the start. A man who does not collapse emotionally. A man who does not beg for attention. A man who does not place women on a pedestal. A man who does not fall apart after hearing no. Her rejection was a mirror. It showed you who you were. But how you behave when she returns shows who you became. A Machiavellian man understands a truth few men ever grasp. A woman does not fall for the man who wants her too much. She falls for the man she desires but cannot fully control. That lack of control is the core of attraction. When you show you can live fully without her, she starts wanting a place in your life. When you stop being emotionally attached to her image, she wonders how to earn her position back. When you become selective, she wants to be chosen. When you become scarce, she wants proximity. When you become unpredictable, she tries to decode you. And when she is decoding you, she thinks about you. When she thinks about you, she feels you. And when she feels you, she does not walk back. She moves quickly because now she is dealing with a man whose presence has weight, a man whose attention has value, a man who cannot be accessed without effort. And here is the final truth no one says openly. She does not return because of who you were. She returns because of who you became after the rejection, because of the strength you displayed, because of the value you demonstrated, because you finally embodied what was always inside you. The man who accepts rejection with strength evolves. The man who reacts with desperation disappears. A Machiavellian man does not expect fairness. He converts every event into advantage. Her rejection was the trigger. Your response was the strategy. Her return was the consequence. So when she comes back, she does not return as someone who controls you. She returns as someone who now understands she could genuinely lose you. And that is the real victory. Not the victory of winning her back, but the victory of becoming the man she never expected to lose. You did not win by chasing. You did not win by arguing. You did not win by pleading. You won through absence, through silence, through stability, through value, and above all, through your ability to remain yourself even when she expected you to shrink. A woman returns because the man who does not beg, does not bend, and does not break is the man she never forgets. That is the true Machiavellian peak of psychological attraction, the point where the game no longer controls you, the point where you write the rules.